Good evening and welcome to Spelman College's fourth virtual town hall with our president, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell. The topic this evening is Spelman's results from the student survey for the spring 2020 semester and the college's response. I am Dr. Darrell Holloman, Vice President of Student Affairs. Before we hear from our president, let me remind you that this town hall is 1 hour from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. We invite you to ask questions during the session. You can do so by clicking on the question and answer function on your Zoom page. The president will try to answer questions in the course of her presentation, and there will be time at the end of the presentation for her to answer additional questions. Tonight, we are joined by members of the college's senior leadership team. Let me introduce all of the panelists. Sharon Davies, Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. Dawn Alston, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. Myra Burnett, Vice President of Planning, Research, and Institutional Effectiveness. Ingrid Hayes, Vice President of Enrollment Management. John Wilson, Vice President and Chief Information Officer. Terry Reed, Vice President and Secretary of the College. Jesse Brooks, Vice President of Institutional Advancement. John Wilson, Chief Information Officer. Helga Greenfield, Chief of Staff to the President and Associate Vice President for Title III and Government Relations. Before I introduce our president and turn it over to Dr. Campbell, there were some questions that came in from Adrian Lance Lucas, the president of the NAASC Atlanta chapter. And we wanted to try to answer a few of these questions. The first question was, what is the total amount raised by the emergency fund from alumni for this effort, excluding amounts that existed in the fund previously? I will ask my colleague, Jesse Brooks, if he could answer that question.
Thank you, Dr. Holloman. We're extremely pleased with the support that we've gotten from our alumni. To date, 725 alumni have given to the Student Emergency Fund, totaling $80,161.
Thank you. The second question, how much was distributed to students due to COVID-19? All of the funds that have been designated in the Student Emergency Fund are being distributed to the students based on the COVID-19 crisis response. How many students applied for help? To date, we have had 154 students who have applied, and we have 50 student applications that are under review. What were the categories of help that were needed? The categories that were determined was technology, travel, rent, childcare, utilities, food, and toiletries and things of that nature. And the last question that I will cover, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Campbell, is what will be done with the overage of the money? The college honestly sees this as a possible ongoing concern. And so we will utilize monies from the fund to continue to meet the needs of students throughout the semester, as well as possible considerations of students that are coming in the beginning of the semester. It is now my pleasure to turn this session over to the 10th president of Spelman College, Dr. Mary Schmidt Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Holloman. Good evening. It's good to be with you this evening as we come to the end of week 4 of our new educational experience. You know, every week brings more and more sobering news. We now know that the unemployment rate is skyrocketing and that many of our families are hit with this reality. We know now that our community, the Black community, has been hit harder with COVID-19 than the general population. The disruption has been academic, emotional, and financial. Since we last spoke, I've received over 36 testimonials and emails from students. From their comments, it's clear that this crisis is wreaking havoc for many of our students and their families. Earlier this week, I spent about an hour and a half on a Zoom call with the Wisdom Scholars and Reverend Guidry, and listened to the stories of the way the crisis is impacting our students. We now have results from our student survey, 685 responses, nearly 1/3 of our student body population, that has given us additional feedback from a broad population of students covering all class ranks. And students, by the way, please note that we're continuing the survey, so if you've not already participated, we're still collecting responses. Tonight, I want to spend some time going over the results of the survey and sharing with our Spelman community how we plan to respond. But before I begin a discussion of our topics for tonight, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge some standouts in our among our Spelman family. This past weekend was Easter Sunday and our virtual Founders Day convocation. Our thanks to Spelman staff and faculty who, for Easter Sunday, provided gifts and donations to our students still resident on campus. A special thanks to Dr. Colin McCahey and Dr. Shay Welch, who worked closely with Dr. Darrell Holloman, Vice President of Student Affairs, and his team to collect donations from staff and faculty. Dr. Holloman's team came to campus on Easter Sunday morning and created a beautiful presentation in Upper Manly. Special thanks to Fury Reed for coming to campus to take the photographs of students enjoying their gifts and their Founders Day cake. A thanks also to Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum for making masks for our students that she handmade herself. Thanks to the Spelman team members and students who were a part of designing and producing our magnificent Spelman College virtual Founders Day convocation and all of the events leading up to the convocation. Institutional advancement, alumni engagement, communications, STS, the Office of the President, and our student government president, Nia Page. Thank you for all that you've done. The Founders Day, virtual Founders Day convocation is available now on YouTube. Thanks also to all of the student organizations who worked so hard to put together the week-long activities leading up to Founders Day. Now, let's turn to the topics for tonight. Our topics for tonight are the student survey results, the summer internships that we're planning, our summer courses that we will offer for this summer, and Spellbound, which actually will take place this weekend. So let's start with the student survey results. As I mentioned, we had 685 responses to those results. And the responses range from every single class rank. And we have some charts that will show us what some of the quantitative results have been. So let's go to those charts. So if you look at these charts, the bars, each of the bars indicates how many students in total responded to a particular question. And the dark blue expressions are dark blue portions of the chart represent those concerns that were most urgent. The middle blue, somewhat less urgent, and the very pale green, not of much concern. So if you look at the chart, you'll see you'll have 215 students. On the very bottom bar, you'll see that 215 students expressed that their highest concern during this period of COVID-19 has been the impact on their health and the health of their family and their friends. The next most urgent concern was the academic impact on their academic future. And then the next after that has been the financial impact. Other concerns that were raised in the course of this quantitative analysis were the issue of social isolation, the impact on career choice, and the responsibility that many of our students have for caring for family members. So let's take a look at our next chart. So our next chart really zeroes in on how students are feeling about their academic performance. And as the dark blues, the green suggests presents those who are not concerned at all, which is a little under a half. The dark blue, those who are somewhat concerned, and over 10% who are very concerned. And one of the concerns that has surfaced as we have surveyed students is that we've learned not only from this survey, but from an earlier survey that we conducted, is that fully 79% of our students had never taken a course online. So what that means for our student body population is not only are they trying to deal with the challenge of learning new course material, they're also having to deal with the challenge of managing new technologies and new ways of new learning styles for them. So that has been one of the biggest challenges that our students have faced. Let's look at the next slide. So the next slide asks about the tools. How many of our students feel as though they had adequate tools? Now, I have to say right at the outset, this quantitative analysis doesn't tell the whole story. And we'll look at our next set of issues will be the qualitative responses. But on the quantitative responses, it looks as though most of our students have a laptop, and if not a laptop, a mobile phone. What we do notice is that a third of our students do not have appropriate broadband internet access. And that, of course, is a major barrier to their being able to effectively receive their online instruction. We notice also that about a third of our students also don't have webcams. So that interferes with their possibility to really fully participate in their classroom conversations and discussions. So let me spend a little bit of time sharing with you the qualitative responses, and I don't have charts to go with those, so I'm going to read to you some summaries of some of those qualitative responses. One of the things that students have noticed is that because they have to master their new course content, they have to master the technology, they require more flexibility with deadlines, assignments, and grading. Students have also noted that there are time zone differences, and so they're asking for flexibility in attendance as well. Many students, as you can see, I said 1/3 of our students didn't have adequate broadband internet access. And so they're asking faculty to consider alternatives for those students who might have connection issues. Now, even though 94% of our students said they had a laptop or a mobile phone, when we went to the qualitative responses, what we found is that very often that equipment was not up to date. So there's the need for updated computers, iPads, software, and access to printers. Many cited the need for a quiet space to do their work. Some cited the very nature of their major. So for example, theater students pointed out that for theater students, being present physically is really the most appropriate way to teach theater. And so the substitutes for it don't feel quite as effective as being there in person. Another observation that was made is that right now, all of Spelman's courses are synchronous. And so what that means is they're offered at a particular time on a particular day during the week. Many of you have shared with us that asynchronous courses would be extremely helpful because that would allow you more flexibility to access the course when you have the time and you have the conditions in your home to be able to really engage with that course material. As many of you know, we extended spring break by a week. So that means that we lost a week of classes. And so many students are feeling that the classroom workload is especially heavy because we had a somewhat truncated last few weeks of the semester. I also want to point also to the request for universal pass. The administration and the faculty have given very careful consideration to universal pass. And I do want to just say that on this issue, there is a real difference of opinion with those students who are advocating for universal pass and for many of us who feel that universal pass is actually not in our students' best interests. And why is that? We feel that if everyone passes a course, we've made no real distinction between whether a student has mastered the material or not. And that's the basis of grading. And that's the basis that being able to evaluate that mastery is also fundamental to academic integrity. Now, several students last week questioned SACS COC's position on this. SACS, as you recall, is our accreditor. And Spelman requested a clarification from SACS, and their response is now on their SACS website. And we'll put the link up on our FAQ so that you can read it as well. You can read what how SACS has responded to us. And they have stated that universal pass does not meet the standard of academic integrity for accreditation. So the real question for us as a college is what can the college do? What is within the college's purview to overcome these barriers? And how can we guide you to success? It's very clear we're not going to be able to solve all of the challenges that you face, but there are some ways that we can take steps that can be helpful to you and that can lead you to academic success. So first off, the college has received notification that we are going to receive $1.4 million in federally supported emergency funds. This is over and beyond the emergency funds that Dr. Holloman reported on at the beginning of the town hall. We have been notified by the federal government that those funds should be accessible to Spelman in the next 48 to 72 hours. We'll use those funds to support many of the circumstances that are already supported through our emergency funds: housing, food, medical expenses, childcare, transportation, the purchase of technology equipment and internet access, books, and other academic materials. When will these funds be available? Well, the government has shared with us that we should have access to them in the next 48 to 72 hours. And we will make available to our students very soon how they can gain access to these funds. Having heard the issues that you raised in the survey, the administration, faculty, and deans continue to share among themselves what they have learned about best practices for the delivery of online instruction. And I can tell you that The faculty and the administration have realized that we have to expand the use of Moodle because that's a helpful way for you to just go right to that portal and get the information you need as opposed to receiving a mountain of emails. You shared with us the need for flexibility with deadlines, and our faculty are aware of the need for that flexibility given what many of you are facing at home. As I said, we now know as a result of our surveys that most of you have never taken an online course, so this is really new, and we have to make sure that you're fully acclimated to the use of the technologies. And you've shared with us that we need to communicate with you often. And so we're very mindful of that so that you are aware of all the resources that are available in support of your learning. So I'm going to stop here and answer questions. I see already that in fact the SACS COC response is already up on Spelman's FAQ, so you can feel free to go right to that and read exactly what SACS has said about the Universal Pass. Some of the questions that have come in, what are you doing for the financial impact on parents? Are you extending the deadline to pay tuition? So that's a question that we have not considered up to now. But Dawn, do you have any, and Dawn Alston is our CFO and our Vice President of Financial Affairs. Do you want to comment on whether or not we would extend the deadline on paying tuition?
Sure. I can say that our original deadline for this semester was actually March the 28th. And we typically would have put holds on accounts. However, based on the current situation and financial strain, we did not place holds on accounts. And I would advise parents who find themselves in situations to please reach out to student accounts. I don't have a date thus far that we would be placing holds, but at the moment, there are no holds placed on students' accounts.
Thank you. So another question has come in, how many students are still housing on campus and what are the mitigating factors precluding them from moving out? Is this due to financial challenges, and is there anything the alumni community can do to support these students? Dr. Holloman, can you report to us about the status of students living on campus right now?
Yes, we have 43 students who are currently living on campus. Initially, we started out with 60 students who are living on campus, and over time, many of those students have left and gone home. As you can imagine, there are a myriad of reasons that the students are on campus. Some of them are deeply personal, but the college is taking great care to support those students who are on campus and to consider their transitions as they move off campus. Some of them are seniors and will be graduating. Also, I would like to personally thank the alumni group and chapters, especially Linda Patton. She's doing a fantastic job of ensuring that her sisters are supporting the sisters that are remaining on campus. And so there have been various donations that have been given. We thank you again, as Jesse said, for giving to the emergency fund, as well as small as writing handwritten notes that were passed to the students on Easter. And I think we have some more notes that have come in that we will also pass to the students. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Holloman. So I have a comment about the CARES Act, and that is the act that under which the college will get $1.4 million for emergency aid. Spelman, yes, Spelman will be receiving a total of $2.8 million. I'm reporting on the $1.4 million because to date, the guidance that we've gotten has been for the $1.4 million. We do not have explicit guidance for the other half of the funds. And let me say at this point, there are actually two more pots of fund over and beyond the CARES Act, coming from the federal government through the CARES Act. The state, every single state, the governor of every single state will receive an allocation that is at the discretion of the governor to distribute. And for each state, there is a specific allocation for higher education. We've made inquiries to the governor's office about what the guidelines will be and what the process will be, but we have not yet heard how those funds are going to be distributed. In addition to those funds, we know from UNCF, which has been lobbying very hard and very aggressively on our behalf, that there are funds that are specifically earmarked for HBCUs. To date, we don't know how much each college is receiving from those earmarked funds, nor do we know exactly how they're going to be allocated. So I'm going to pause on the questions, and I'm going to go to our next topic, which is the topic of summer internships. So one of the realities with the economy being as volatile as it is that many of our students have heard word that they are not going to have access to their summer internships. And the summer internships are really an important part of the educational process. It's that moment outside of the classroom where a student has an encounter with a professional opportunity and really gets to see whether or not she has an affinity or a passion for a particular field or profession. We have decided at Spelman that we are going to work with the faculty and our Office of Research, Innovation, and Collaboration to establish a pool of summer internships that would be funded through a combination of funds from Spelman College and from a gift which we received from the Mellon Foundation unexpectedly, that will allow us to create a pool of funds, stipends, and research that can be done digitally through over a number of different disciplines. So we'll have some internships that will be STEM, internships that will be in the humanities and social sciences and the arts, but we expect to have at the very least 40 paid summer internships that we would be able to offer. So please stay tuned for that. We'll be announcing how you can apply for those and who will be eligible to receive them. But we think that this is a really important part of our students' learning experience. And I want to particularly thank Dr. Tiffany Oliver for sharing this idea with us, and for Dr. Tasha Innes for agreeing to work with Dr. Oliver to make all of this come together, and Brandy Taylor, who's also in the Office of Research, Innovation, and Collaboration. Thank you. Now, we've also gotten a lot of questions about our summer courses that are going to be offered. And at this point, I'd like to turn the conversation over to our provost, Sharon Davies.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Campbell. We, several years ago, started as a pilot program, a few summer online courses. And over the last couple of summers, that has grown somewhat. So last summer, our students might remember that we had a total of 14 summer online courses that were available. This summer, the exciting thing that has happened is that there is a much larger group of our faculty who want to offer summer programs, and we think that we may have a much larger group of students than normal who might use part of their summer to make up for courses that they might have had to withdraw from, or they just want to get ahead of the next year or so. So we will have a much larger group of courses online. They will be taught by our faculty. These will be the same courses that our students know and love from the academic year. Registration will begin 1 week from today, on Thursday, April 23rd, and students will receive an email about all of this that will go out tomorrow. Last year, our pilot program of summer online courses allowed us to offer them at a discount, and we will continue that this summer. But this will be the last summer that we'll be able to offer our summer online courses at a reduced rate. The courses, unlike the courses now that are mostly synchronous, as the president mentioned, the courses over the summer are largely asynchronous. So that will allow students to have the convenience of taking the courses when it best fits into their day and their schedules. There will be peer tutors, math tutors available to support the students who take the courses. And our faculty right now are being trained in putting together these online courses because they are different than the courses that are being offered live synchronously as we finish out our semester. Most of the courses will start on June 1st and the remainder will start on June 15th. So you will get an email about that, students, if you are interested in summer online courses.
Thank you. So there came a question came up about the $1.4 million in emergency funds, and it says, according to the IRS, these funds go directly to students. That is absolutely correct. So in other words, we don't post these funds to your account. Once you qualify for them, once we determine that you qualify for them, the funds go directly to the students. So that, yes, that is absolutely correct. I had another question that has come in about training of staff members. I think this means training for faculty members because it's a question about teaching online. Provost Davies, do you want to share with our audience the training that's available for faculty for online?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And let me make a quick distinction so everybody knows the difference that in the training that the faculty get to create an actual online course different from what they are doing right now, which is teaching their courses live over the use of computers. So what our faculty are doing right now in this emergency situation is that they are engaged in emergency remote distance teaching. But an online course is actually created in advance. It typically can take a month and a half to many months to create an online course and to do that well. And there are lots and lots of ways to make an online course exciting, engaging, enriched with modules and other innovative pedagogy. All of that takes training. So our faculty who are interested in creating, converting their courses into an online course are engaged in training with our colleagues in STS right now, and they will be taking that training up until the time that they will launch their courses at the beginning of June.
Thank you. So Dawn Alston, I have a question for you. When will students get refunds for housing if they haven't gotten one yet?
Those refunds have actually already been processed, and I know that they were sent out in the previous week, last week. So I would encourage you, if you have not received your anticipated refund, to please contact student accounts. Their email is student ACCOUNTS@spelman.edu, so that they can research your specific case.
So, Dawn, I'm going to ask that we put that email address in the FAQs. It's a lot to remember. And also, while I've got your attention, there's a question also about parking refund funds for students.
So those have also been processed. I'm not sure that they have actually been dispersed yet, but that would be one that you could also address the question to the student accounts email. And actually that email address is already in the FAQs that are related to student refunds.
Thank you. And I have one more for you. What determines the amount that colleges get from the CARES Act? Is it based on student population? What is it based on? How do they make that? How do they come up with $2.8 million for Spelman College?
Sure. So that that number is based on our student enrollment. Our average student enrollment is about 2,050, as well as the number of Pell students that we have. Our Pell population is about 48%. And so the Department of Education looks at those numbers as well as the level of endowment that the institution has in order to come up with how much each institution will receive.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a couple of questions about how study abroad will work for next semester, particularly for those students who need study abroad to graduate. As you know, our international studies students, study abroad is a requirement. Provost Davies, have we begun to think about what will happen with our very large study abroad program?
We have begun to think about it, President Campbell. As you know, our study abroad program is nationally known. We had, as of last year, 77% of our seniors had a study abroad experience, and we're very proud of that. But obviously, what's going on right now worldwide has created real problems for that to go forward. And unfortunately, we're not currently in a position to know whether or not our students will be able to study abroad in the fall or study abroad anytime during next academic year. We'll watch that very closely. We are aware that there's a possibility that we will not be able to have some of the study abroad activities our students are accustomed to next year. And so I am in conversation with our chair and the faculty in the International Studies Department, and also our Foreign Language Department, because majors in both of those departments have requirements for graduation of some study abroad experience. Our faculty will be prepared to modify that if we have to, based on the necessities of the COVID-19 crisis.
Thank you. So I have an alumni out there who says that if alumni can provide paid summer internships for students to conduct K through 12 research, how can we engage? Please email me at the president's, at my email address for the president's office. And again, we'll mount that on our FAQs, but please get in touch with me directly, and we'll make sure that we connect you to the office that will be setting up the the summer internship possibilities. And that sounds great. Thank you. If there's anybody else out there who has paid summer internship possibilities, please let us know. Our students would be most appreciative. A couple of questions have come in about the applications for emergency funds. So how soon will it take students to have access to these funds? Spelman is waiting for the government to give us access to them, but do we have any sense of what the turnaround time might be for accessing these funds? I don't know if that's Dawn or Helga Greenfield who wants to field that question.
I will give it a shot. This is Dawn. I'm going to say that it would probably take between, we're investigating a couple of different methods that we can use in order to turn around the dispersal of the funds as soon as we receive them as quickly as possible. Our hope is that we can get the funds to the students within minimally 48 to 72 hours. I am a little hesitant to say that that's definitive. However, one thing that could help with the distribution of the funds quickly is if students sign up for direct deposit. And there are instructions to be able to do that on our FAQs under student refunds.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to take a pause from our answering questions and go back to our last topic, which is Spellbound. And as all of you know, Spellbound is probably one of the most important experiences for our admitted students, and very often makes the difference between whether a student decides to come to Spelman or not. So I'm going to call on our Vice President for Enrollment Management, Ingrid Hayes.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. As you can see from our graphic, we are calling all superheroes. Spelman Admissions is excited to present Virtual Spellbound for the Fantastic 24. This class of first year and transfer students come to us with a variety of superpowers, including courage, ambition, compassion, creativity, authenticity, and resilience. And just like any great superhero squad, when they combine these strengths, they are unstoppable. Spellbound issue number 2024 is a 2-day event scheduled on Monday, April 20th for admitted students and Tuesday, April 21st for parents and family supporters. Our heroes will assemble for virtual sessions with faculty from across disciplines, key staff from Student Administrative Services, and of course our exceptional students who share the same superpowers as the incoming class. The full agenda, including topics and scheduled speakers, will be shared with admitted students in communications from the Office of Admissions. Sessions will be recorded for admitted students and families who are unable to attend. We look forward to welcoming as many of the Fantastic 24 as possible to Spellbound next week. Thank you.
So Ingrid, a couple of questions. How many students do you have signed up so far for Spellbound?
We have, the signups will drop tonight, so students should look to see those links coming into their portals.
Thank you. And so what other activities are taking place to connect our potential incoming class with our current student body?
Students are, should be seeing across our social media platforms a number of opportunities. We engaged a week or so ago our new student meetups. They are opportunities to speak with our counseling staff as well as our students. So far, we've had over 600 of our admitted students to engage us in that way. Additionally, we are about to launch our Financial Aid Fridays. And so the financial aid team will dedicate some time for the next few Fridays to offer students, admitted students opportunities to ask specific questions and to get some general information about the financial aid process and understanding the award letters that they have received. And then throughout the summer, we will also be engaging students in various ways, offering webinars, as well as engaging students on across our social media platforms.
Thank you. Now I have a question also about the ACT and the SAT tests, and that's obviously for the next, our next round of admits. The question is, are ACT or SAT test requirements being waived for fall 2020 applicants?
Thank you for that question. Actually, Spelman's admissions process concluded at the February 1st application deadline, which was ahead of the COVID-19 outbreak and response here in the United States. So we already had received completed applications from our applicant pool. We don't typically, in previous years, we have not looked at March or later test scores in that process. So our decision-making was not impacted by the cancellation of the late spring test in the current applicant pool.
So we have
were sent
thank
out
you.
April 1.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ingrid. So we have a couple of questions also about the emergency funds that are coming through the Stimulus Act, through the CARES Act. Dawn, I'm going to direct this question to you. There's several questions about whether the $1.4 million can be used towards spring 2020 balances.
So we have to pay the funds directly to the student. However, if the student would like to pay their balance using the funds that they receive, we're certainly welcome to that.
Thank you. Ingrid, another question for you. What types of spellbound activities do you have planned for parents? And will we be able to connect with other parents as we would if the event were in person?
Sorry, I was on mute still. My apologies.
Thank you.
No problem. So currently the parent agenda will include time with our faculty as well as conversations with student affairs and the financial aid team as well as the admissions team. But I will certainly take back to the director of admissions the opportunity to think about how we can better connect parents of our admitted and families of our admitted students.
Thank you. I have another question, a spellbound question. Can you confirm spellbound invitations have been sent? And what should a student do if she has not received an invitation?
Sure. So spellbound invitation, the registration links for spellbound are scheduled to drop tonight. I don't have the exact time, but it will be later this evening. And that link goes to all students who have been extended an offer of admission.
Thank you. I have a question about the recording of these sessions. These sessions are being recorded. We're all being recorded right now. The sessions should be all archived on our coronavirus page or on the president's page, and they are available to you if you want to go back and listen to an earlier session. There have been 4 town halls, and this is the fourth of those 4. I have another question for you, Ingrid. Lots of questions coming in for you. Will there be an opportunity for incoming students to be paired with a spell mom from the class of 23?
So we have not within the admissions office done those pairings. However, we have been taking a peek at our social media accounts, and we can see that some of our Spelman students, our Spelmanites, have extended that opportunity to students as they are announcing that they have been admitted to the college. Again, that is something that we can take a look at and see if there's a way for us to make that happen. Thank you for the suggestion.
Thank you. So, Dawn, we have a question. It's an HR question. It's for students who were employed on campus in an administrative role. Is there an option for them to work remotely?
There is. If the student, our students that were working as general college students, if they are able to work remotely, should work with their supervisor, their current supervisor, in order to determine how they may be able to continue their work remotely.
Thank you. So I believe that we have every year we have a wonderful scholarship luncheon, and that's an opportunity for all of our scholarship donors to gather, to be introduced to some of our students who are recipients of their scholarship aid, and for our students to really share with the scholarship donors what that scholarship has meant to them. It's always a very beautiful, very moving ceremony. So quite obviously, we've not been able to have that ceremony in person this year. And this question is for Jesse Brooks. Has there been any consideration given to the scholarship event that usually takes place in March? I believe the question is, are we making any plans for a virtual event in place of the in-person event?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Campbell. Right now, there are no plans to have a virtual scholarship event, but it's definitely something we can look into.
Thank you. I have a question for you, Dr. Holloman. We have a question that's come. What are the tentative dates for orientation and move-in for the superhero class of 2024?
Well, first, I'd like to welcome the superhero class of 2024. We are looking forward to you coming to campus. This is New Student Orientation is a joint venture between Student Affairs and Academic Affairs. And the Dean of Undergraduate Studies and I will be meeting very soon after May 9th to begin to talk about different platforms that we might use for New Student Orientation, particularly if it had to be remote. We talked this morning and decided that we would have better time to talk after May 9th.
Thank you. So I have a question also about the date for commencement. As you know, because of the COVID-19 crisis, like colleges all over the country, we've had to postpone an in-person commencement. Ingrid, I know that you're working with our events team on campus. Do we have any word yet about when we might have that in-person commencement?
We do not have updates at this time. I know that some of our peer institutions have already announced dates, but what's different for us is that we don't have a facility on campus large enough to welcome all of the family who want to honor their graduates. And so we're having to look at other venues. And so the process of reviewing those so that we can make plans that are appropriate to celebrate the class of 2020 is just taking a bit longer. And so we are continuing to work on that and hope to have something very soon.
Thank you. Now here's a question that has come up, which I have not heard before, but it's a very important question that will apply, I know, to a number of students. And that is, will federal money be allowed to cover student and parent loans taken this spring semester? As you indicated, it can be used by students who still have balances on their accounts. Dawn, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. Since the money will be provided directly to the student, once the funds are in the student's hands, I believe that you can use it to pay off your loan payments, as well as any balance that you have for the current semester.
Thank you. I have a question specifically about the Alfred P. Sloan internships. Some of you may know that our economics department was the recipient of a very generous grant from the Sloan Foundation, the purpose of which was to encourage more students to want to pursue a PhD in economics. And part of that grant was to provide them with internships. And so the question is, will those Sloan internships be provided virtually? I don't know if Dr. Marionette Holmes is on this call, but she would be the person who would answer. And if she is not, we will make note of that question and post something in our on our website that answers that question. So I do want to make note that we have noted that question, and you're quite right. There are internships that were available through the Sloan Grant, and we need to find out whether or not they are going to be offered virtually. I have another question, Dawn, another question for you, and that is there an estimate for how much the Pell students will receive through CARES? Will only Pell students receive money?
We are working on the plan for that right now. Tentatively, we don't think that only Pell students will receive funds from the CARES grant. There is a cap on the amount that each student will receive, which is the amount that you can't receive any more than a Pell Grant will offer, and that's by the federal regulation guidelines. Right now, though, the college is determining exactly how those funds will be distributed, and we anticipate that that not only Pell students will receive those funds. However, the government has imposed that the expectation is that we would help those students that are considered the neediest, which would be the Pell recipients, first.
Thank you. So a question, Provost Davies, about the timing of when you can take a pass-fail. And the question specifically is, will students be able to wait till finals have been graded to know if they should take a pass-fail for the class?
The answer to that question is no, but students will be able to wait until the very last day of their classes, which is April 29th. And in the meantime, we are advising our students to talk frankly with their faculty, with their professors, so that they have a very good sense of where it is that they are in the class before they have to make that election.
Thank you. There's a question, there's several questions about the impact that COVID-19 has had on our community. And questions have come up, they came up tonight, they've come up in the past about the extent to which anyone in our community has been the victim of COVID. We have not taken a survey of our students. We have, so we don't have a formal assessment of whether or not among our 2,050 students, who among them might have been infected with the virus. There are issues of privacy in terms of whether or not a student would want to or even be required to disclose that information to us. But I would suspect that the reason that question is being asked is when we return to campus in the fall, how do we make sure that we keep our population safe? And so those are questions that I think that we are actually beginning to think about, and not only for Spelman College, but for all businesses and public places and places where people have to gather and regroup for in the fall. How will we continue to make sure that we keep our population safe and healthy? But right now, we don't have an assessment of what the impact has been on any of our students. We're reaching the end of the hour, and we have just about 1 minute left. And I just want to share some closing remarks with you. I cannot tell you how useful it has been for all of us to have the participation of our audience, our active participation of so many segments of our audience. We had over 500 participants tonight, and we had a pretty even distribution of faculty, students, parents, staff, and some friends of the college, trustees, and some friends of the college, alumni who have been on this group. So it really, these conversations have really been a terrific representation of the Spelman community, and we appreciate your joining us and look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.